So in this lesson on literature search and analysis, we want to understand the true purpose of literature in our academic research. A brief background about me. I studied at University of Morocco, of course, at the electronics department from 2000, from 1996 to 2001. Then after that, staying here for about 2 years, I joined the Western University of Canada. Uh, there I studied for 5 years, did my master's and PhD. So this is a little picture of that university is one of the buildings during winter time. It's extremely beautiful, totally covered in snow and so on. Yeah. So some of my credentials to be teaching this course. So you can see I have listed here the top 100, top 50 forums according to Google Metrics. So you can see starting from nature and so on. You can see that's the uh, forum that has the largest H5 index. We will understand what all these things mean throughout the lecture. So I have been a reviewer for these forums that I'm highlighting in green, as you can see. CVPR conference, that's the second highest ranked in top 100. We have two CVPR papers also, and then New RIPS, that's the topmost AI conference in the world, and ICLR, there's an ICLR paper. We have an ICLR paper. There's a message. You cannot see the PPT. I have shared the screen. Can others confirm if they can or cannot see the screen? Yeah, some people can see it.
Okay, from our end.
Yeah, it's, thank you very much. Yeah. So please check. Then these you can see these ECCV, ICCV, AAAI, TPAMI. I have been a reviewer, so I have quite a bit of review experience and getting publications in these top forums. So uh, these forums, they need us to truly analyze literature and identify the problems that exist in the literature. We call it finding the gap in the literature and then target our work there. So I will describe how I see it and how I value literature in this process. So you will also gain something for your research from that. So I'll give you some general tips on literature first of all, and these are fun facts actually, and then the purpose of literature, and then we'll see how to find literature, and briefly on how to analyze, and um, just start bibliography managers, which I will complete on the next day that I would mean. That will be on the 17th. Yeah. So if I ask you what is research, some people may give different answers. Maybe if you are working for an organization, if your CEO or a senior manager comes and asks you, Puta, go and do some research, what does he mean? He means go to the computer and do a Google search, do a chat GPT search and find out how to do something or some information about it. Or maybe call some person and get some information about it. That's what they mean by research. But for us, the researchers in academia, what we mean by research is discovering new knowledge. Knowledge that the world did not know about until we discovered it. So, discovering new knowledge is research. And if you look at Wikipedia, what it says is research is creative and systematic work undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge. The stock of knowledge the whole world had will have to be increased by the little research that we do. Not by a substantial amount, but by a tiny amount, we increase the amount of knowledge the world has. This is about research. And then let's listen to a person. This person is called Paul Graham, and he's the person who discovered this language called Lisp. It used to be a great language, Lisp language. And he's the person who ran this so-called Y Combinator. This is a startup funding organization they select and they fund. Now he does not do that anymore, but he's a great thinker of our current time. So what he says is this: I do not consider myself to be doing research on programming languages. Here's a man who has designed a programming language. I'm just designing one. In the same way that someone might design a building or a chair or a new typeface. I'm not trying to discover anything new. I just want to make a language that will be good to programming. In some ways, this assumption makes life a lot easier. Yeah. So he's doing great work, but he's designing language, but that he does not call research. The difference between design and research seems to be a question of new versus good. Design doesn't have to be new, but it has to be good. Research doesn't have to be good, but it has to be new. So can you see that? Research has to be new. So I think these two paths converge at the top. The best design surpasses its predecessors by using new ideas, and the best research solves problems that are not only new but actually worth solving. So ultimately, we are aiming for the same destination, just approaching it from different directions. But the thing is this. Um, uh, this kind of research work, that means it is equivalent to great design, is perhaps only for large scale companies. I'm sure these large companies, Google's, Apple's, and so on, while they are discovering, designing new products, they are making massive research contributions also. But for people who are in university, that's not for us. For us, what is applicable is the first definition of research, that means finding something new. Yeah. All right. So, what is the dominant goal of the KPI, key performance indicator of research? So, okay, now think about this. Now, some of you are staff members in universities. How is your academic worthiness measured by the university? So, maybe some of you can type an answer in the chat box. How they measure your whether you are a good academic, whether you how do they measure your research performance? How
From research publications.
Yes, excellent. That's the correct answer. That's excellent. So they measure our research contributions by the number of publications. So um, so when you are recruited to a university, they will measure how good your research is from the number of publications and how good those publications are. That means they will look at how many times that your publications have been cited, and how good each publication is that has been cited by multiple times, and how many such publications are there. So we will see all these things. Anyways, you gave the right answer. The dominant KPI is publications. So we must aim to publish. We must aim to publish at renowned forums. Renowned forums. But we know that, however, we we know that the process of making you an independent researcher is what is truly important. That means after going through all the research work that you do in universities, maybe under the supervision of a academic staff member, maybe you are doing a PhD, maybe you are doing a MPhil, a master's, you have to become an independent researcher. That means you should be able to define your large scale research problems and find sub problems that can be solved by students and smaller groups. And becoming an independent researcher is a goal of that. But, anyways, they measure research by the number of publications. Yes. So, why do we want to write? So, this course is all about research, and they will talk about writing. But why do you want to do that? Uh, Now, when you produce something new, you discover so many things, and you want to preserve that knowledge. Preserve that knowledge for other people to know. For example, a person from some other country may look at your paper and they will want to reproduce the work that you did. Maybe when we are dead and gone, some people may want to discover something new using our work as a basis. So, because of this, to preserve knowledge, we write our work. Secondly, for reproducibility, and I alluded to that in the first statement also. What this means is you take the paper that you wrote, someone takes the paper that you wrote and follows the steps and will be able to reproduce the work that you have done on your own. So these are the two purposes, in my opinion, why a paper should write and get the work published. So, okay, I'll give you a few seconds to think about this. If you are thinking without writing, you only think you are thinking. So that means, what this means is, writing is a part and parcel of your research. Every research project has to be interpreted by yourself through your writing. When you're writing like that, you sometimes discover, oh, I need this new experiment. Oh, the gap that I found is not so good enough. Oh, there is a problem in my argument about the gap. So like that, you come up with problems and you understand your own work through your own writing. So therefore, if you want to critically think about something and if you want to produce something, you must write while you are doing it. Yeah. So this Leslie Lamport is a person who discovered this technology of producing good-looking papers. This is called LaTeX. So in our work, in the technical work, I'm in the computer vision domain. We use LaTeX to write papers. We don't use Microsoft Word. So maybe you also can discover that it's a beautiful way of writing papers. You don't have to worry about formatting. You just worry about content, and it produces beautiful. All the books in the world that are technical are written in LaTeX. Maybe you can discover that also, but this is not the topic here. LaTeX is not the topic, but this person is saying that. Okay, some things for you to think about and smile. All right, so this is the student. Yeah, student. And this student is saying this research is impossible. He's very angry about with the professor. And then the professor shows the latest journal. The title of the journal is paper with the same title you were going to give to your thesis. That means someone has already done your work. Someone already did it. So this is why it's very important for us to do the literature search as early as possible. So yeah, all right. So this one, it's a very, very, very bad instruction. If you look at it in that fashion, so you can see I have written good writing is imitation. It's a very bad writing. Let me make it slightly large so because it's into the next line. Oh, all right. Good writing is imitation. That means I'm asking you to copy when you're writing. Good writing is imitation. Is that what I'm asking? No, actually, what I want to show is now look at these animals. What species are these animals from? Maybe can someone say that or type a message? What's the species? What are these animals? Are they monkeys or are they, who are these? Let's see if someone knows. Okay, no one is typing. These are called meerkats. Meerkats, maybe in Sri Lankan zoo also the meerkats are there. Thing about those meerkats is when one animal is looking this way, all the others look that way, sort of, except this one. So that means what I want to say is that when we write a paper, we must look at the papers written by great people in our field, and mimic the way they have written the paper. So the paper structure, for example, starting with the abstract, introduction, maybe the literature search, the methods, the results, some discussion and conclusion, like that, the structure we must follow. The way they articulate their research findings, we must follow. Because these people have discovered these things way before we did. And those discoveries are based on thousands of years of human civilization, understanding how to convey your ideas to the others. So that's why I'm asking you to see a few well-known papers in the area, yeah, of your research, and then know the structure, know the style of writing, and so on in your area. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then another tip is start with the end in mind. So like a footballer or soccer player, knowing where the goal is. So what is the goal? To get the experiment, get the publication. To get the publication, what is required uh, are the results. Results are required. And these results are, they are in tables. In the paper, there are tables. And your aim must be to add one row to that table. So this table may have numbers. And finally, you want to add one more row to this existing table, the table that was published last year by well-known researchers, so that you can show that your results surpass existing results. So a paper without any comparison of numbers, without any comparison with results, at least in my area, with the recent well-known papers in well-known journals and conferences, is no paper. It's no paper. Do not even get into that area. Even if someone tells you without comparison of results, we have no paper. Comparison of results with recent papers in well-known conferences and journals, those are the benchmarks. Is a must. Plan the tables of results before you start the experiment. So after doing the experiments, you don't want to find out, oh, I missed this experiment, or the metric that I used for this too, the yardstick that I used to measure my experiments is not the same as what the other researchers have used last year. So you cannot compare them. You cannot compare apple to apples. So this is the end that I want you to have in mind, that you also need to add a row to the table that the other researchers produced last year. Okay, then one more. This has been said by Sir Isaac Newton. If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of the giants. So you can see he directly alludes to existing work. So research design. Uh, so um, so these giants are the authors of the existing papers. So you read those papers so that when you stand on top of those papers, you can see far. So this is the research design that we need to have in our mind to get a great paper. All right. So that design, I will tell you, assuming the Sri Lankan context. So now if someone goes to a very well-known university and starts working with a very well-known professor, then the things are very different. That professor will give you the first 5 papers, the first 10 papers. He or she will tell you, okay, uh, you go and read these 10 papers. Then you will be able to get a great understanding about the most important concepts in our area of research. But in Sri Lanka, maybe you don't get that chance. Maybe your professor does not give you those 10 papers. So you are this novice researcher. You do not know what to do, but you know your general area of interest. Maybe you want to, like me, maybe you want to work on computer vision, maybe you want to work with large language models, maybe you want to work with self-driving, maybe you want to work with um, discovering new materials, maybe you want to analyze material properties, maybe you want to analyze rainfall patterns, and so on and so forth. So the general area of interest, you know, so that's why you join that degree program or that department. Then, of course, you have to do a good Google search and Google Scholar search, and you can do a ChatGPT search and identify journals and conferences in this area. Journals and conferences in this area. So different areas have prominence. Um, in journals or in conferences. For example, my area, computer vision, the important publications are conferences because the results have to be quickly disseminated. So conferences take the precedence. In some areas, maybe if you take communication, for example, in electronic communication and meaning, the journals have more journals have precedence. So like that, in your area, you have to find whether the journals are important or whether the conferences are important, and what are the important journals and what are the important conferences. Without knowing this, without knowing these top journals and conferences, there is no way that you can get a great publication in your area. Yes. So I hope you understand that names of the journals and conferences. Actually, that exercise I will ask you to do today. Finding the journals and conferences in your area. Maybe you already know. So then after that, within the general area, you have to find a specific area of interest. Specific area of interest. So I can tell you specific areas of interest in my area, but yours, I do not know. For example, right now in the general area of artificial intelligence and computer vision, there is a general area of interest called vision language models. That means you have experienced this, is you can get you can put an image into ChatGPT and you can ask it to describe that image, right? So that is actually they are invoking a vision language model through that interface. So describing an image, capturing an image, giving an answer based on an image that you type put. So this is okay, but that also is too broad in my area of research. It's a too broad an area. Within that, you have to find. Within that, you have to find um, whether I would say, am I talking about discriminative vision language models or generative vision language model, auto-regressive vision language, like that. You can find even small areas of interest. So finding the specific area of interest is extremely important after you do that. So for this, your supervisor must help you and he must tell you, okay, this area of interest is too broad. This area of interest that you have is too narrow. Like that, he or she must be able to guide you. Okay. All right. Then after that, you find a few recent targeted papers in well-known conferences and journals. So you identified these conferences and journals here, all right? And out of those, you find a few papers, targeted papers in these well-known journals and conferences. Maybe you find 10 papers. That's enough. Maybe you find five, even five is enough. 10 papers, five are enough. So you find those key papers that you want. So see, if you have a great professor, he can quickly shortcut you to this one. He can tell you, Karan, if you read these five papers, you will be able to arrive at the research gap. Oh, this is beautiful if that happens. But unfortunately, maybe you'll have to go through this path to be able to do that. So then in your hand, you will have these recent high quality papers. And about these papers, we have absolutely, these are correct papers written by well-known authors and they are receiving citations. That means people are using those papers for their own work and they do not receive criticism saying, okay, this paper is incorrect. That kind of criticism they don't receive. So therefore, you know that these papers are good. That means they contain a good knowledge. So by going through these, you try to find the research gap. Finding the research gap is the goal of our literature search in this context. Finding the research gap. That means something that has not been solved in these research papers, something that has not been solved in these research papers or the papers that came before. Yeah. So therefore, you can see this is not like undergrad work. You have to establish that problem has not been solved by anyone. That is the research gap. So your research will be making this bridge to close this research gap. Yeah. So this is the goal as a researcher that you have. And then for that we had to plan. You have to plan your research work. Yeah. So I think you understand the usual process that a researcher like you and I will have to take in the current era. Things are happening so fast in the research, and maybe the supervisors themselves do not know exactly what those five important papers are that have been published very recently. Yes. So, by the way, if you have any question, you can always turn on the mic and ask, and you can type in the thing, and you can even send me a WhatsApp message or something. So, my phone number is this. So, one thing is do not call me unnecessarily. So, I cannot find time. You can use WhatsApp or something. Okay. All right. So, let's go to the next one. So, now, the process that I gave you here is a very bad process. This is this cannot be recommended. But maybe this is the only thing that is at our disposal. But the correct thing is this. However, we know that we must plan research to solve a grand research problem. Maybe creating an agent that reasons like a human being or something. Maybe creating a vehicle that can autonomously navigate in crowded cities like Colombo in Sri Lanka, something like that. Like that, a grand problem. Maybe finding method of automatically finding cancer in whole slide images, the slides that you like that, finding any kind like that. You have grand research problems, but from that we take one portion at a time and we solve it. So this is the true way to plan research, but unfortunately, from my experience, I know that it is very difficult to plan like that because there are constraints in funding and finding students and all sorts of problems are there. Okay, all right. So now let's see some things that you need to keep in mind in the research planning process before we enter into the literature. So once you find the research objectives and hypotheses, that means you know the gap. You some may need a data set. So you have to think about how am I going to collect a data set? Is this data set available online, or do you have to write a survey and ask people, or do you have to do my own experiments to read those numbers using an instrument? And so I had to think about that. Yeah, so this is data set. Data set is such an important thing. It can make your research proposal totally invalid because you cannot create the data set, or maybe the data set is too large. Your computational power is not sufficient to handle that. So thinking about the data set is very important. So then we have to think about the methodology and experimental design. Maybe the methodology that you came up with is not doable in Sri Lanka. Maybe you don't have the computational power. Maybe the weather in Sri Lanka prevents you from doing that. Maybe the power condition in Sri Lanka will prevent you with the raw materials in Sri Lanka. So like that. So you have to always think whether the methodology that you have undertaken is feasible. That means it is doable in Sri Lanka. So maybe you have to come up with some of those algorithms. Are these algorithms runnable in the hardware or the computers that you have? So computational resources and other facilities, other instruments, do they support my research work? So we have to always think about these things. So for these, usually your supervisor can very well help you because he or she has experience and she can tell you, okay, these instruments we don't have, these instruments we can get access to, and so on. Then, what are the evaluation metrics and performance analysis that other people do? So, how do they measure research? Do they use the accuracy, or do they use the mean square error, or do they use standard deviation? Do they use the whatever the measure that they use to measure research? You have to understand and know, then only you will be able to compare the results. So, as I said in one of those little things, the goals, our goal must be to compare results with the existing paper. So, therefore, you have to make a plan for that. And in our area, at least, there is such a thing called ablation studies. What that means is maybe my research work, maybe a methodology has several components. This part, this part. So, you take one away at a time, take away one at a time and see how the results are affected. So there you are showing the reviewers and the readers this exactly why my results are better. Because of this intervention that I did, my results are better. So this is called an ablation study. What do you plan to use ablations? So what is your writing plan? When are you starting to write? Or will you have enough time to write given the deadlines that you may have for your graduation, or maybe there's a conference deadline and so on. So for all these things, you have to plan. And of course, staying current is very, very important. Otherwise, you will get into the situation of the student whom I showed you that he did some work and he kept on saying that I cannot do it, and someone has published that. So, what are the ways of staying current? To stay current, you can perhaps subscribe to the Twitter or the X, now it's called X feeds of the famous researchers in your area. Or you can subscribe to different forums that your researchers post messages. You can time to time go to the websites of the research groups in your area and see what they are doing. So staying current is extremely important, especially in my area of computer vision. Staying current is the name of the game because within 6 months, all the ideas that you have just get totally invalid. Yes. So, do you have any questions up to now?
Is there a way to find the top conference papers and journals in a particular area? Like, is there any way, like, without the supervisor, we can find something like that?
That's a great question. I think I'll answer that right now. There is a way. I think you already know that, but I will show you. So by going through the Google metrics, you can do that. So this is what we do uh, in our work also. So you go to this website called Google Metrics. I will show you some other ways later, but this is very easy. So you go to Google Metrics. First of all, it will show you the top 100. You can see here the top 100. And as I showed you before, you can see the nature is at the top. CVPR is the second. I have two CVPR papers. My students, of course, have two CVPR papers. Those are the only ones that Sri Lanka has, um, and so on. So, yeah, new tips. Last year we got an international conference on learning representations paper also. We means my students, they are the ones who do the work, not me. Uh, yeah, and so on. So this is the top 100. So then you can have to go to your area. So maybe my area is engineering and computer science. You go to that and you go to the subcategory. My area is computer vision and pattern recognition. This is the area. So here you have the top 20, top 20. So uh, yeah. So I'm happy to say that I have papers here. Yes. Some here I have papers. Last year we had two here. CVPR workshops we have paper. So ICCV workshop we have, BMVC we have, ICIP we have, ACCV we have. So yeah, this is the top 20. So if it is in the top 20, usually it should be okay if the journal or the conference is in the top 20. So if you take this one, IEEE transactions on pattern analysis and machine intelligence, this is the topmost journal of all of engineering. So if you have a paper, if you see a paper there, it must be good usually. So let's go to some other area also. Maybe you go to robotics. Right? These are the areas I have some knowledge. So robotics and automation letter, that's the topmost journal. It's a journal, International Conference on Robotics and Automation, ICRA conference. So that's I have one paper there also. Professor Buddhika Jayasekara and Professor um, Ruan Gopura. These are people who have papers in these top forums, ICRA papers. Dr. Peshada Jayasekar has IROS papers. These IROS, it will translate robotics. So you can see that these are the top forums. So for many areas, definitely in engineering, these are there. But for other fields, they not be there. That I agree. So maybe, now for example, if you go to categories, maybe you go to medicine, health and medical sciences. So now you want to understand uh, if you want to publish in radiology, radiology. So these are areas that I know. That's why I'm showing those. Okay, radiology and medical imaging. So other areas I do not know. So we have Mackay paper. That's a first Sri Lankan Mackay paper. So you can see these are the top forums. So you will not go wrong if you target maybe top three, four for sure. They are generally okay. Yeah. It's also maybe there are bad ones also within this, but generally they are okay. So there is no rule, but you can generally be okay. So one question is how can I be sure that the research gap I found is correct? Because what if I miss some papers? True. This can always happen. So this is for this I don't have an answer. So after you find the research gap, maybe using the title you have to do a Google search with that proposed title. Maybe you have to do a chat GPT search and see what it spits out. If it spits out too close ideas, that means these people already know about it. That's one test that you can do, and this is this is sometimes happens, and unfortunately, reviewers they know and they may reject your paper if that happens. So thank you for that question, but unfortunately I don't have an answer for that question. Yes. So this is how you find these top forums. It's very important to know these things. So this is an exercise that we'll ask you to do, find these top four. No? I'm sorry, there was a power cut. By the way, I will make the recording of this lecture available. So now, after discussing about this research gap and how to find good papers and so on, let's briefly look at the structure of a paper. Now, I want to show that in this fashion. Introduction. What does L mean? What do you think? It's a literature review. M, method section. R is a research section. D may be an optional discussion section. So this literature review we have put that in parentheses to show that it may be an optional one in the introduction in some papers or conference journals or conferences, and then finally the conclusion. This is the typical structure of a paper. So usually these introduction and so on map to the broader sections of the hourglass structure of the paper. Paper must be of the hourglass structure. They are broad. The conclusion is also broad. But when you think about the literature method and methods, they are in the generally the narrow area. Yes. So this kind of thinking must be there in the paper. And but the writing order, maybe perhaps you know want to have the initial resource in your hand before you start. Maybe you write methods. Maybe you write then the introduction, then literature, then conclusion, and then finally the abstract. So maybe the ordering in which you write changes actually. But if you ask me, if you want to get a paper accepted, what is the most important section? There is no doubt that it is the introduction. Introduction is the most important section to get a paper accepted. Why? Because in introduction, you lay out the argument that you have, starting from general literature that you have, and going into slightly more specific literature, displaying what your gap is, and then showing people how you have taken the steps to close the gap, or describing your approach and briefly describing the results and briefly stating the conclusion. That means fully capturing the main line of argument in the paper. Uh, uh, you write the introduction. So reviewers want to make the decision by reading the introduction. They want to make the so if you cannot make a decision after reading the introduction, it, you are waiting until you look at the results, look at everything to make a decision about the paper. So writing the introduction that way is so very important. But all the parts of the paper are very important. But that is the most crucial, important one. So there's a question: how good is a workshop paper? Say an ICRA workshop paper versus general conference paper, or an ICRA conference paper, obviously, but Tier B paper conference. Also, typically workshop papers are short, around 4 pages. So, is there a chance of publishing a journal paper of the same research with added content? So, I think you are asking about the workshops that are there in conferences. For example, CVPR conference, if you take it a massive conference, uh, there are workshops called 3D vision workshop, autonomous driving, this workshop, that workshop, and so on. So maybe 30, 40 workshops are there. I don't even know those. So those workshop papers are also highly ranked because the conference is highly ranked. So they have H5 indexes 117 or something. So we have a recent, this year we have a CVPR workshop paper. If you are referring to those, I cannot tell you exactly whether this workshop paper is better than any other conference paper. Maybe if you are asking whether CVPR workshop paper is better than a BMVC paper, British Machine Vision Conference paper, I cannot tell you. Maybe it is. But if you are asking generally referring to conferences as workshops, it totally depends on your area actually. Are there any Q1 journals where we can publish for free or at lower cost? If you have to pay for a journal, that's not so good. You don't pay for journal, pay to publish in a journal paper. In a conference, your paying is reasonable. Why? Because you have to go to the conference and they have to provide you facilities in the hotel and food and all these things. So paying to a conference is reasonable, but journals, why should you pay money to journals? So yeah. Yes. So that's the answer. But about the workshop one, I'm not too sure. But if you get a conference paper accepted and you want to write a journal based on that, that is also possible. So we have a Mackay paper in 2024. It happened in Morocco. And we are now extending that to a journal paper. in the Mackay paper, what we did was we made 3D reconstruction of the liver using ultrasound scans. So liver reconstruction is working. So we have to improve the paper by at least 60% to go for a journal. So there what we are doing is we are using different technologies to do the 3D reconstruction. We are showing 3D reconstructions of the other organs like the kidneys, and also we are comparing the volumes that you can obtain for diseases like fatty liver disease and so on. You can see we take the conference paper and we enhance it by 60%, and we will submit that to a journal for consideration and publication. Yes. Yeah. I have many journal papers. I have not paid money to a journal paper. So do not pay money to journals. Why should you pay money to journals? So, yeah. Maybe overpage charge, that's reasonable. That means your journal takes you 12 pages. You write 14 pages. Of course, you wrote 14 pages and you didn't take time to compress that to 12 pages as journal requires. Then you have to pay money. Maybe you pay $250 or something for that. Yes. Okay. So this is the writing order. That's good. And yeah. So okay, let's do a quiz now. So this is not graded, but you can do it and see. Yes. Uh, true or false? Let's see. Engineering projects primarily focus on applications of existing knowledge and methodologies to solve practical problems or develop products, while research aims to generate new knowledge and understanding within the field. Is that true or false? True. Yeah, some people answering, yeah, the answer is correct. True is the answer. Yeah. Thank you. Some people answered. Yeah. Second question, let's answer. Maybe you should answer privately, otherwise, if everyone sees this, I mean, they will not think about it. Research projects typically have well-defined timelines, scopes, and deliverables, while engineering projects may involve more open-ended exploration and iterative process. True or false? Yeah, that one is. Famous students are there in the class, I know. You don't have to be in class, you already know this. Yeah, the answer is false. The next question is the primary outcome of engineering projects is the development of tangible products, systems, or processes, whereas research outcomes may include generation of new theories, methodologies, discoveries that contribute to the knowledge advance. That's true. So here are the answers. I wrote engineering, but because this is that what I know, so maybe this is applicable to your own fields also. Yeah, thank you for those answers. Thank you very much. And to those people who are attentively listening, I'm thankful. Okay, so let's move forward. Okay, so now let's look at the literature search and the purpose of the literature search. So, all right. So now literature is this. Now think about when you go to see a drama, to a theater. Now, in the theater, what kind of curtains do they use? What color of curtains do they use? They will use black curtain. They will use black curtain. Why do they use a black backdrop? They use a black backdrop so that the performer or the actor can be properly seen. That's the purpose of literature. So you using the literature, you create the backdrop for your research so that your own research can be outstandingly seen in that backdrop. That's the succinct definition of why literature is required to provide the backdrop for your own work. Yeah. So this is one thing, but there are other things using which you can establish the importance of research, establish feasibility. So, for example, someone can come and tell you, okay, um, build an engine that converts water into hydrogen and oxygen and burns hydrogen and runs, like water engine, water-based engine. Now, is this feasible? This is not feasible. This is not feasible. But how do you know now? I mean, water problem, everyone knows, right? Because we have done O-level science. But if you take a complicated problem, it is doubtful whether you can do it or whether you cannot do it. So therefore, but if you can find a well-known paper in that area that says that can be done, then you have confidence that this problem is solvable. Establish feasibility. Or maybe a famous journal says this cannot be done. So let's be humble. Like we are not world famous researchers. We don't want to start challenging the topmost contributions in the world. So if that very well known author in that well known journal says this cannot be done, it is not feasible. You cannot use that methodology to do that. Yeah. So that's one thing very important to establish feasibility. You can use literature. Thirdly, you can use the literature to expose the research gap, and these two are almost the same. Expose the research gap. So you will say in your research, maybe we look at some of those things that people have written. Okay, the technologies that were done in the past, they describe, and they say, however, although that was done, this is not done. So therefore, exposing the research gap is through the literature. So that's the third important use of literature. Then establishing novelty. This is very, very important. So the most common reason that papers are rejected, of course, papers are rejected too, is lack of novelty. So the solution that you are providing or the gap that you are filling has already been filled. There is no novelty. Other people have used your methodology. Other people have solved the problem that you have solved. So lack of novelty. So therefore, to establish novelty, going through literature is extremely, extremely important. So if someone says, sir, there is no literature for this area. There is no literature for this area. What are you saying? You are saying either, okay, I'm not Einstein. Okay, you are not Einstein. That we have to agree. That means we cannot be discovering an entirely new area in the world. So that means either you did not search enough, or this problem is not currently addressed by researchers because it has been addressed 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. If there's no literature, current literature, that means this problem is not worthy to be addressed in research right now. So it is very important to know that there must be papers in the last year's conferences and journals. Then, okay, now you have a problem and you have identified the gap, but how do I fill the gap? For that, you need to know the methods, right? You need to know the method. So sometimes when you do not know the method, you watch a YouTube video, right? Maybe you suddenly found some noise in your computer, the fan is moving so fast or something. You type in ChatGPT or you go through YouTube videos and find out how to do that. What is the method of doing that, right? So that you can find by looking at existing papers. So those papers will clearly outline this is how we solved it. What they're saying is you may also try to use this method. Yeah, this is how we solved it. So understanding the methods of solving the problem can come from the research literature. Then understanding the metrics. Maybe you remember at the very beginning when I spoke about the goal, I said in a research paper, you must compare results. You must compare results using what? Using the metrics that the existing researchers are using. The same metrics, maybe the accuracy, maybe the mean square error, maybe something. So like that, these metrics, understanding the metrics. So by looking at the literature, you can say, okay, in this subfield of mine, the well-known researchers use this data set and this metric, or use this metric to evaluate their work. You must also use the same metric because otherwise people will say that you are not comparing your results in a proper manner with the existing work. Or you are okay. Let's face this. Like we all are intelligent people, but we cannot say that we are much more intelligent than all others who did the work in this area last year, right? So they are also intelligent people. We must respect them. So therefore, the metrics that they have used must be correct. So we also must use those metrics. How can you find about those metrics? By reading through their papers and then gauging existing results. And you know the value of that to understand the results and how this methodology produce results, the power of this method to produce good results. All these things we can understand by going through the literature. Very important. So day in and day out, we are using these things that I'm telling you to do our research, to get better results from our research, to improve our methods, and so on, day in and day out. These are two things, and this is my experience. Okay, and to be current. So we had to keep on reading papers. We had to keep on reading papers, and this constantly we do in our group. Actually, my group is a group of undergraduates. There is no money to have a graduate group of researchers. I know Indule is there, so you have to be such a nice person to come and start doing research with us because the payments are very small. So what we do is we have an undergraduate course. I have an undergraduate course called Advances in Vision. In the Advances in Vision course, we read the recent papers, and those recent papers are curated by former students of ours. Now, those are PhDs now, elsewhere, different countries in the world. So every year we revise the list, and they will say, okay, remove this paper. This is no longer required. We add this paper. Like that, we read about 30 or 40 papers and improve our knowledge every year, update our knowledge every year. This is in addition to keeping track of work that is happening right now. So in my area, I have we have um, sometimes I forget this trending paper something. Yeah, this is so like that. There are papers that are trending. So sometimes I look at them and look at the number of votes and just check whether they have to be read. So I don't know if this is the right one. I don't remember that now. Anyways, so important papers in your area. Maybe there are some forums using which you can have a look at the important papers that have been published recently in your area. Uh, then suggest ideas for research problems. So now when you now think about this now, we are from University of Moratuwa and close to University of Moratuwa. As you know, there is the carpentry business. Assume that I recruit a person to be a carpenter, and he has not worked as a carpenter. Okay, he has not worked as a carpenter. He has just done gone to school, and then I ask this person to make a chair. Now, this person does not know about the saw either, does not know about the chisel neither, does not know about the hammer meteor, does not know about the plane yatukate. I mean, does not know about any of these things. So what will he do? He knows about the knife. So using the knife, he starts cutting wood, right? What a stupid thing to do. You will go and laugh at him. Don't be stupid. To cut wood, you use a saw. You will go and tell him, right? See, now, if you do not know about these tools, how can you solve a research problem? If you do not know about the saw, the chisel, the hammer, and the plane, how can you make a chair? So, if you do not know about the tools that other researchers are using in your area, how can you solve a current problem? Yeah. So, for example, in my area, I must know They predominantly use PyTorch for coding this deep learning network. So there are new techniques like flow matching, this, that, and so on. Transforms, all these things I should know. I should know that these are the tools people are using right now. I'm talking about the algorithms and computational methods and methodologies and so on. So for your area, it is different. But all these things appear in the current well-known research papers. So you can see literature helps you to suggest ideas for research problems. Literature helps you to suggest tools to solve those problems. So how can you generate research problems by looking at those papers? This is how you should do it. So it's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. So you need, first of all, the background about the tools and papers that are happening in the area. So you must have a feel for those things. Feel for those things. You should have tried those things. So then now that means we have this carpentry person. He has used the saw. He has used the hammer. He has made several chairs. Made several chairs. So now we ask him. Now think about making a chair for the honorable minister. Making a chair for the honorable minister. Then what he should do is he has to go and close the door of his room and sit there and think about all the good chair designs that he has seen, all the good carvings that he has done in the past, all the good designs that he has seen in other places, all the carvings that he has seen in other places, right? Then something will come to his mind. So like that, after equipping us with existing papers and the problems and the tools, we have to spend quality thinking time quality thinking time and let the new ideas come into our minds. Have a cup of tea and keep on thinking for an hour or two and so on. Yeah, you have to do that. That's why going to a conference is so useful. When you go to a conference, especially in some other country, you go sit there with a piece of paper or a tab, and you keep on listening to world-renowned people in your area. Then ideas will start pouring into your mind. Ideas will start pouring into your mind. So this existing research suggests new research problems. Yeah. So it is, think about this now. It's like you are like ChatGPT. Now you have to, your brain is like, you have to prompt your brain with new things, right? Prompt your brain with new things. Then only something new will generate. Otherwise, if you do not prompt your brain with, if you prompt your brain with old things, that happened 50 years ago, nothing new will come. Or things that you learned in high school or in your chemistry class or physics class, nothing new will come. Yeah. So you can see literature is helpful to suggest new ideas. Some questions. Let me answer those questions. I have a doubt when I search for related papers, I can see some papers in archive. What is archive papers and can we consider archive papers a reliable reference or should we use the journal or conference paper? A very good question. I think you know the answer for this question, although you asked, but I will answer because it's very useful for the others. So archive is University of Cornell. Cornell University developed this archive thing to quickly uh, put your knowledge out. Put your knowledge out. You can see we archive all our papers and we archive them. There is a way to archive the timing. There's a timing thing about archiving. My students know about this. I don't know about this timing thing about archiving. So you can see all our papers have been archived. And but one thing is this. So if you take this paper, archiving, we have written in the paper somewhere. Uh, that it has been accepted to the conference. That we have not written. So let's see, this one will be certainly accepted. Okay, accepted to ICLR 2026. So he wrote that. The archives papers usually are have been accepted to a journal or a conference. Therefore, you have to refer to the original journal or the conference. But now this is there. It has been accepted to ICLR, researchers do not lie. So this is a good paper for others to read if they want to. Also, there are some papers that are in archive because they did not get accepted by a conference or a journal. So you have to be careful about those. And also, large companies like Facebook, Google, and so on, they also put papers in the archive. They don't submit those to conferences because they are they are better than something to be submitted to a conference. They are better than that. So they don't submit because they don't want to give the glory to a conference of that work that they have done. Work is so good. No conference is good enough for that. So that kind of papers are also there. So you see, there's no one answer to that. Just because you stumbled upon an archives paper, do not read that unless it has been accepted by a conference or a journal. Why? Because when it gets accepted by a conference or journal, at least three well-known researchers read this paper and accept. Because you are no person to judge them unless you are a senior researcher. Yeah. So, but if some paper is recommended to you by, it is in archives, but someone recommended to you. So, for example, this something like that. This flow matching paper, okay, it's in archives, okay, archives and cited by 4,000 people. Okay, this you can see I have looked at this paper. This you read. Okay, so now you see you are essentially asking the most one of the most important questions I want to answer in this lecture. That is, how do you establish the goodness of a paper? How do you establish the goodness of a paper? So there is no one metric. You have to use several metrics, and I will talk about that very soon. Yes. Then the next one, I have doubt when I search for yeah, the archives question. I think yeah, same archives question. The next question is there a way to access the papers which require institutional login? Okay, so now this is also one problem. So some journal websites and conference websites need you to pay money to access. The University of Moroto or Sri Lankan University do not have access. That is a true problem. Unfortunately, there is no solution for that. From Sri Lanka, only solution is you have no friends who are in universities overseas. That is the only way. For our area, that problem is not there because all our papers are open. So our archive paper citations, your Google citations for your Scholar index, archive paper citation. Yes. In my Google Scholar, archive papers also get cited and they are included in that. Does archive papers count for your index? Yes. Archive paper, if I have an archives paper cited 10 or more times, it will be not 10 or more times. So they will be counted. Archives papers are counted for citations. Are they counted to promotions? No. Yeah, so those are very important questions. So let's move forward. So we looked at this. Identify strengths and weaknesses of other theories and works. I think you understand that. Identify theories that can be applied to your work. You understand that. Get the aspects of presentation. So how to present your work in the paper. So for this, should you use a graph? For this, should you use numbers? For this, should you use provide some visualization and so on, right? So you can understand it. Uh, um, So can we cite archives papers when writing a systematic review? I think for the you can definitely cite archives papers in paper, journals or conferences that you are writing, but for the systematic review, I think no. And I do not understand the systematic review thing very much. I'm sorry. Identify outlets of publishing. So where have the others published the work and where should I publish? For that also literature is useful. Yeah. So I think you can you got a very good understanding from this about why you need literature. This is definitely not to fill a part of the paper. Okay. All right. So if you have more questions, you can go through this and read. I have uploaded the slides. You can see the slides in the class. Okay. Let's understand what literature review is not. To convince the readers that the writer is knowledgeable about literature. It's stupid. It is stupid. A laundry list of previous studies. You just list the previous studies. Compilations of facts and feelings. Reporting everything that you read. This is not literature search. Now, for example, if you write a literature like this, from your writing, we can see whether you have used the literature for a purpose or just to fill the space. Smith found, Jones concluded, Anderson stated, and so on. So this is just a laundry list of papers. Totally does not provide an argument. So if I have to summarize what literature search is in one sentence, it is an argument that establishes the gap. It is an argument that establishes the gap. So therefore, Smith found, Anderson stated, and so this forms no argument. Yeah. So therefore, this poor writing, not only poor writing, but also misses the whole part of an effective review of literature. Literature is also a good servant, but a bad master, of course. Yeah. So a well-known person in our department told me to include that, so I did. All right. Then, if this is the case about literature, what should literature review be then? So it is a dialogue between you and the reader. Argues for the validity of the problem statement of the gap. It anticipates readers' questions. The reader may ask, what is your point here? What makes you think so? What is the evidence that you are providing for this? And so what? So like that, you are anticipating readers' questions and giving him answers in the literature review. So it is not a compilation of facts or feelings, but a coherent argument that leads to the problem studied or the research gap. So your literature review, like a river, must flow nicely without any interruptions or glitches to the end. And that end, is your research gap. So once your literature search flows to the research gap, then your readers will say, the reader would say, yes, of course, this is the exact work that needs to be done at this time to move knowledge in this field a little further along. So if this is the answer that is created in the mind of the reviewer after you reading your literature review, you did write a good literature review. So this attempts to convince the reader of the legitimacy of your assertions by providing sufficient logical and empirical support along the way to establish your research gap. Yeah, I hope that what literature review is clear. So what is the purpose of concept papers? I think concept papers, are not academic papers, right? They are um, maybe they are asking, okay, create an AI center for University of Moratuwa. Or why don't you create a concept paper on this? Something like that, I think. There is, I don't think they are talking about research publications. I think, maybe I'm wrong. All right, quiz for you. Okay, so maybe you can privately type the answer. Otherwise, if everyone sees the answer, then they will not think about it, right? So maybe you can, for question, okay, I did not number these questions. Let's number them. Number these questions. Question number A, number B, question number C. Let's take A first. Okay, for question number A, what is the answer? Question number A, what is the answer? Can some people type? One more question is here. Can you please let us know about the systemization of knowledge? I do not know. Sorry. Question one: what may not be a solution section in a research article? Yeah, talking about this question. What may not be a section? Yeah. Some people are giving correct answers. People are giving. Thank you for those who are giving good correct answers. Correct. Once in a while, there's an incorrect answer also. Yeah, okay. So I'll give you the answer for the first question. See, conclusion must be there in a paper, it's a must. Discussion may be combined with the result section, right? That's why discussion may not be a section. So this must be there, method section must be there, introduction must be there, results must be there. So this is the correct answer. Next question, let's try question number B. This is the answer. So question number B. So for B, please answer. What is not a reason for doing literature search? Establishing novelty, of course, you have to do literature search. Establishing feasibility, yes. Provide the backdrop, yes. Expose the research gap, yes. Demonstrate knowledge in the field. Yeah, answer is E. Demonstrate knowledge in the field. We don't want to use literature to demonstrate knowledge in the field. And that is not a part of a paper. When you write in the paper, everyone assumes that you know about the field. Then finally, for question number C, what's the answer? The literature review is not a compilation of facts and feelings, but a coherent argument that leads to the problem studied or the research gap. This is true. This is true. Yeah, thank you for all those who answered. Okay, this just to keep you alive. Okay. So then some people ask how to find literature. So I'll briefly talk about finding literature also. If you have any question up to now, you can ask. Look at finding literature. Maybe it's time to get a little break, right? Yeah. So let's take a break because I think you can get tired. So now 4:27. Shall we meet at 4:40? About 30 minutes break. 4:40. Let's meet at 4:40. By the way, there is a quiz that you have to do on the Moodle that is uh, graded. So please do that also, but it's very simple. It is directly coming from the slides. Yeah. Actually, how did I make that quiz? I put my slides into ChatGPT and ask it to make a quiz. That's how the quiz has been made. So you can see there is a quiz. Quiz 1, literature search. So please do that quiz. Attempts 9. 9 people have tried. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So you see they are getting good marks. Because it is possible to copy them in the ChatGPT and get the answer, but please don't do that. Yeah, please do this also, please. So we meet at 4:40. I'll pause the recording. Welcome back. Let's answer some questions. Is a generally accepted AI policy for publication? It is your idea, you work, and you write everything yourself and use AI to write what you wrote in polished way, not just the grammar and spelling, but also the structuring and narration. If you assume the conference uses AI detector, will this be a reason for rejection? Case B, say you have the idea and the gap and the working, but the coding development is done with AI. Is this also considered unethical research? For example, civil engineering researcher without basic coding knowledge using AI to write code to validate simulate theory claims. I think both these cases are ethical uses of AI. And you are not trying to do a bad thing with any of these things. So I would say they are very ethical. Um, in conferences like that I review, we know the ideas that AI can generate. So therefore, the originality of ideas, there is a way to, because we, based on the previous year's papers we check, and AI should not be able to generate that kind of new idea. So therefore, there is no problem in getting filtering out papers that generated ideas using AI. Generating ideas using AI is not useful because they are sort of based on human ideas. But if your conference is a conference that uses an AI detector and you unfortunately get caught, then it is an unfortunate situation. So I think you have to be careful with that because that's an unfortunate situation because you have done ethical work and of course in the work using AI is good and you should not be stupid not to use AI in your work. But unfortunately, because of the AI detection, the paper may get rejected. So therefore, you have to be careful. Mm, yeah. So I hope this is my opinion. I don't know whether this is valid to get your paper accepted. Yeah. Both are acceptable uses of AI. What is not acceptable is you just ask AI to generate a paper and you submit that. That is not totally acceptable at all. Or lie and so on. Yes. Okay. Then I will move on. Okay. Again, another comment sharing my experience. If we use AI for writing and refinements, I need to declare that I use AI for that purpose. However, they strictly prohibit use of AI for analysis and generating some images. Uh, yeah. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. Yes. Yes. It is true. Yes. Actually, none of these are problems for me because in our papers we draw the diagrams by ourselves and we have to very carefully draw the diagram because otherwise the researchers will not be able to understand the paper. So my purpose is to make the reviewer understand. So to make him understand, we very carefully draw the diagrams. And some diagrams are mathematically correct and so on. AI cannot generate those kind of diagrams relevant to our papers. And very complicated diagrams also. So that means the thing is this, like if you find that AI can generate the contents for your paper, maybe your paper is not so good or something like that. So let's look at this ATPT paper. It will be published at, so you can see some diagrams. So you can see that these diagrams AI cannot generate, right? I mean, these are our results and produced results, and these visualizations are showing the cases that we are addressing and why our method works. And do you think the AI cannot generate these diagrams? So because it is our work and not possible to generate. And so these are our results, and how can AI generate these diagrams? So if AI can generate diagrams, I think there is some problem in your uh, work, perhaps. Yeah. So yes. Um, yeah, maybe I'll show you the liver econ paper, and in that paper, you can see some diagrams, and these are our own ultrasound scans and our own segmentations, and these are diagrams hand drawn by us. So these are our own reconstructions. How can AI generate these diagrams and the text can be selected and so on? That's the thing. So, and the results, um, yeah, see, these are our own results. They cannot be generated by AI. Their own our own segmentation. So we we have produced these. So the 3D reconstructions, you can see all these yeah, from these numbers you can use a program to generate this kind of box plot here, that's for sure. Those are but very important questions. But you're asking an important question. So you can see my answer is maybe perhaps not very common, because my aim is to get your paper accepted to a very good forum. Those very good forums are usually not deceived by AI, usually. They can also be deceived. Okay, so let's briefly look at steps in writing a literature review. Where you find and read relevant articles and you organize them, find key areas of knowledge, organize them logically, provide transitions between idea areas, associate papers with areas, and summarize purpose of each paper, assumptions and main claims, and then identify gaps in these papers. How can these papers be applied? Why do these existing papers demand new solution like that? So let's briefly look at an existing paper and see whether we can extract something out of that. So let's take, this is the best paper award in last year's CVPR. So so how they have addressed the literature. Um, so you can see related work is the literature. So you can see they have categorized them into several areas. They are very different areas though, categorized. This is what I said here. Um, so categorize the associate papers with areas and you summarize them. So you can see then they are talking about these things. Let's say multi aims to densely reconstruct whatever, and then you can see they have cited like 1, 2, 3, 4 papers for that. Global optimization, 1, 2, 3, 4 papers as that, and then finally so they say they summarize these papers, exploring whatever, though these attempts achieve only suboptimal and or comparable performance to whatever. So they are summarizing all the papers that they described here, and then they are talking about their paper. Instead, see, they're using that keyword instead, they are showing the difference. VGGT, their paper, outperforms Duster and by a large margin. So their contribution here is outperforming the existing papers by a large margin. That's the claim they are making in regard to this multiple video stereo. And tracking any point, they are describing many papers. They are including many papers, the ideas of those papers. All these methods are specialized in point trackers. Here we demonstrate VGT's features yield state-of-the-art tracking performance when coupled with existing point trackers. So you can see the advancement they are making, they are finally describing, right? So that's what we want to say. And then you evaluate and why the existing papers demand a new solution. They are saying, right? So this is how you expose the gap by describing literature. Yes. Okay. I hope you understand that. So when you're searching for literature, the best thing is to ask from your supervisor. If your supervisor can give you the 5 papers, that's good. And know the top journals and conferences. Actually, we discussed about that in detail. Specify and search. Know the topic. You have to know the topic and you have to know the keywords, and you have to run specific searches for that. List the questions to be answered. Do a keyword search in Google, and of course now I have to add in famous LLMs, right? First, we use an academic search engine such as Google Scholar, Sightseer, and some well-chosen keywords to find 3 to 5 recent papers. Do one pass on each of the papers to get a sense of work. Then read the related work sections to find. You will find a thumbnail summary of recent work and perhaps a pointer to a recent survey paper. So what we are saying here is, it's an important thing. So maybe you are reading 3 20 26 2025 papers. 2025. This is a 2025 paper, and you found another one, 2025 paper. And another 2025 paper you found maybe. All are 2025 papers. See, maybe all these papers refer to some let's say 2022 paper. From 2022 paper, then this 2022 paper must be an important paper. Right? Must be an important paper. So this is the kind of thing we say about shared citation. Shared citations. So these key papers are important. You have to read. Actually, these are the papers that should have been given to you by the supervisor. If that does not happen, then you have to do it by yourself. Maybe you can use an online engine to find these shared citations. Maybe there are tools like that. I do not know. Refer to now after that, what you do is, now this is the shared citations too. So you found them, and then you go to Google Scholar and find all the papers that cite these papers. That means beyond 2025, in late 2025 and 2026 papers. Are they in important forums? Are they in important forums? If they are in important forums, those papers also you must look at. Then after that, you are current. Your research knowledge is current. Your literature knowledge is current up to 2026. Then you have to keep on tracking from there on. What are the papers that are coming? Maybe you can put alerts. If someone writes a paper, you get an alert in Google Scholar or something like that. Yeah. So then go to websites of the key researchers and see. Yeah, they have published recently. Identify top conference journals and see what these research groups, are doing right now. Yeah, what are the top groups doing right now? So this is yeah, how to search for literature. So yeah, then you ask what is the right number of papers. So you can have fun by doing it. Yeah. So let's not do this exercise. So primary and secondary sources are there, not very relevant to us actually. So now let's look at establishing credibility of a research paper. So actually one question asked in today's photo was, archives paper authentic? Yeah. So we do not know. So let me show you several methods of establishing the credibility of a journal or a conference paper. What are the major journals and conferences in your specialized field that you need to know, so that you can know by looking at Google metrics? This knowledge you have to have. Then you can use things like impact factor, not impact factors. It's wrong. I should correct it right now. It's called impact factor. Impact factor and the quartile. What is the quartile? You can get the top 25%, second 25%, third and fourth. Top one is called Q1, quartile 1, quartile 2, quartile 3, and so on, based on some ranking. H index. Yeah, I will talk about that, how to compute that. Google metrics, these things can help. And citations definitely help. Who is a publisher? A scientific society, a well-known publisher, university, or a commercial entity. That's important. And the number of citations is very important. Do not read new journals or journals not sponsored by a society, at least as a start. Do not read journals that charge money for publishing, at least as a start. Do not read journals that are only electronic or only print, at least as a start. Yeah. So these are the rules in establishing credibility. So citations matter. So that means you should read papers that have large number of citations. Journal impact factor, H index, journal citation report, Chicago journal rank, quartile, and all these things matter. For example, impact factor is this. In any given year, the 2-year journal impact factor is the ratio between the number of citations received in that year for publications in that journal that were published in the 2 preceding years, and the total number of citable items published in that journal during the 2 preceding years. So you can see citations in this year, divide by the number of publications in last year and the year before. That's the impact factor of this year. Then H index, Hirsch, I think this is professor who actually called it. The H index is referred to as a maximum value of H such that the given author or journal has published H papers that have each been cited at least H times. So if someone has H index as 10, That means he has at least 10 papers with at least 10 citations. That's what that means. If someone's H index is H50, that means that person has at least 15 papers that have been cited at least 15 times. Yeah. So H5 index is H index of the article published in the last 5 complete years. It is the largest number H such that H articles published in 2015-2019 have at least H citations each. I think you can understand that. H5 median is there, and then yeah, you can understand that. Quiz. Let's take this quiz, please. What are the criteria for establishing credibility of a publication? Impact factors, quartile, Q1, Q2, reputation of the publisher. Generally okay. B, H index, Google metrics, authors being from a good university. Generally okay. Quartile, Q1 or Q2, high H index, being within Google metrics. Impact factor being high, quartile, Q1, Q2, high H index. What is the correct answer? Maybe some of you can type the answer for the first question. A, B, C, or D. A lot of people are typing. Mostly the answers are correct. That's very good. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, the correct answer, I'll tell you the correct answer now. The correct answer is D. What is wrong with the first one is it says impact factor. There is one impact factor. Impact factor is wrong. And yeah, reputation of the publisher, these are others are okay. H index Google metrics, authors being from good news. Google metrics, I mean, just being there is not good. It must be high, right? Quartile, high H index being within Google metrics. That's not good. It has to be highly ranked within Google metrics. Yeah. Okay, so second one is the journal published 20 articles in 2018 and 80 articles in 2019. If there were 200 citations in 2020 for the articles of those articles in the last 2 years, the 2020 2-year impact factor is. How do you compute that? You take the citations now. Yeah, some of people are giving the correct answer. That's good. Citations for those articles. So there have been 80 articles and 20 articles. So there are 100 articles have been there in 2018 and 2019 altogether. And there have been 200 citations for those. So number of citations divided by the number of articles in the last 2 years, 20 plus 20. This is the 2-year impact factor. So 2-year impact factor is 2. So some areas have very high impact factor, some areas have low impact factor. So usually the impact factor also has to be ratioed based on a field. So if you go to a journal website, they should tell you the impact factor. So if you go to ITV transfer pattern and machine intelligence, so you can see they should show you the impact factor at the very top. Somewhere, maybe they don't care. Yeah, so 18.6 is the impact factor. It's a high impact journal. Yeah. Then, so this Web of Science is there. Previously, Web of Knowledge or something is a website which provides subscription-based access to multiple databases that provide comprehensive citation data for many different academic disciplines. So, but Google Scholar is also there. Journal citation report, Clarivate journal citation report from Web of Science Group. Solutions journal citation reports. Master journal list. So you can go to them and see. I will go to Shimago and show you. So this is by this. So you can search for journal and title. So Okay, I have some of these things. So let's search for this. Research journal. So I know that this is correct. Netherlands, this is correct. The correct one. So H index is 216. It's quartile 1. So you can see the quartile in artificial intelligence. It has been quartile 1 from 2016. Right. Cognitive neuroscience quartile 1. Computer science applications quartile 1. So we have a couple of papers in this journal. So you can see things for that one. So like that, you can get the quartile from this. So I welcome you to go to these websites. I have uploaded the slides and see these things. So this one also master journalist, and if you search for one, you can see that it has been in indices. So let's take the same thing. Okay, this one, same one. So that one you can see science citation index expanded. So this is a good index. So if you have this kind of indices, very specific indices in you can wait for your promotions and so on for professor, they give you additional marks, very valuable marks. Website. So others also have listed. So their users and so on. I myself do not know. So you can go to them and see. Google metrics we spoke about. Yeah. So these are top publication, top 100. I think I got them last year, the subcategory, the top 20, and so on, AI. And then there are things called predatory journals. Predatory journals provide a forum for those who do not have a forum. So you have to run away from this. Run from this. Guaranteed publication in a short duration, say a week. Probably charges money for publishing. Perhaps no peer review or editing. Perhaps they post everything that they get. Website itself contains mistakes. Publishes papers containing silly mistakes. New created indices like impact index. Yeah, it's impact factor. So lack of comprehensive instruction for authors. No indication of peer review process. Listed in Beers list, and this list is no longer maintained. Lack of latex template. So these kind of things are indicators of bad predatory journals. You should never be a part of these things, and your academic career is ruined if you get a paper published in one of these things. Does the number of contributors for a paper matter for the quality of a paper? It is like this for marking for in the university promotion criteria. To when you get the marks for journals, you have to ratio it by the number of authors, and you have to claim. Okay, if you are the first author, you can claim. Well, you are claiming 40%. Even though there are 5 authors. 5 authors means 20% each, right? If you equally contribute. So it is not like that. No? So first author can claim. The last author can claim because last author is the person who's assuming the responsibility of the work. That's a principal supervisor can claim. So too many authors is bad, but sometimes you need to have authors. For example, in our liver reconstruction work, we have the engineering authors, me, Dr. Rukshani, and Kaushalya, student. And then there are many medical consultants, professors. They are also professors in universities and so on. Medical consultants, they are the ones who did the scanning and gave instructions. So many, all these people are authors. So like that. So I think it's something that is required in the work. So this is how you should look at the number of authors in the work. So if it is required for that work, of course you should have these authors in the work. So sometimes what people do is, if they have equally contributed, sometimes our students write equal contribution, then you can sort of claim first author contribution when you equally contribute. So when you write like that in the paper. So let's see whether our students have done that. Getting cited yet. There are some citations. Next one, they wrote, the authors contributed equally to this work. See, they wrote it like that. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I mean, actually, they did these 4 students. They worked very hard on this work. So, About the diagrams also, you saw that these diagrams are carefully drawn, and you cannot get AI to generate these diagrams. Okay, yeah, that's the answer to that question. Thank you for that very important question. Then when you think about how to read a paper, so there are three ways to sort of read the paper. There's three passes. First pass gives you a general idea about the paper. Maybe you can spend 10 minutes to do that. I know some people use the notebook LM. That's a Google contribution. You can put the paper there and ask it to read for you. Maybe there are other tools. You can educate me what other tools are there. So I sometimes do that. Put the paper in that when I'm like sort of lazy to understand the paper. So we put that and ask it to read, or they can generate a discussion among themselves. And maybe I should unshare the screen and show you the discussion they make. Discussion is good actually. Sometimes you feel like listening to it. Share sound, yeah. So
Welcome back to the deep dive. We are tackling a piece of research today that it sounds a bit like a Zen koan, but it's really more of a declaration of war in the world of computer science.
It's definitely aggressive, you know, polite academic aggression, but yeah, aggression.
The title is An Image is Worth 16 by 16 Words. This comes to us from the heavy hitters at the Google Brain team Dasovitsky and Company back in 2021. And the whole battle here is drawn between two massive camps, the text people and the image people.
Which historically have been two completely different kingdoms.
Right. For the last decade or so, if you wanted a computer to read, I don't know, Hamlet, you built one type of brain.
you can see that has some use in that. So for the first pass, maybe you can use that. First pass gives you a general idea about the paper. Second pass lets you grasp the paper's content but not details 1 hour. In third pass helps you understand the paper in depth, 4 or 5 hours for beginners maybe. So bird's eye view, carefully read the title, abstract and introduction, read the sections and subsection headings, but ignore everything else. Read the conclusions, glance over the reference mentally, ticking off once you have already read. So reading the first paper in your area is the hard thing. Reading the second, third and fourth is easy in your sub area. Second pass, read with care, ignore what you can, look at figures, graphs, results. Is the work shoddy or excellent? Mark relevant unread references of further reading. After this, should be able to summarize the paper. Then finally, fully understand the paper, particularly if you are a reviewer, requires a third pass. The key to the third pass is to attempt to virtually re-implement the paper. After this, innovations and failures can be identified. So you also can try this one. So analyzing literature, before that, I will show you the assignment that you have to submit on this. It's an easy assignment. This one is called sources of literature. Sources of literature. So I'm asking you, state the area of your research. So please write down the area of your research, whether it's computer vision or hydraulics or something like that. List the top 3 journals and top 3 conferences in your area of research with justification. In answering this, provide following 2 tables with your own entries. Your area, if it does not have conferences, then list 6 journals. So you can see the evidence that I'm giving, that I'm listing IEEE transaction pattern and machine, that is topmost journal. Impact factor, whatever, H5 index, this one, Q1 in all areas. So that is good enough for justification to show that this is an authentic journal in my area. IEEE transaction, image processing, impact factor this much, H5 index this much, Q1 electrical and electronic engineering. International Journal Computer Vision, impact factor 6, 8, like that. So you can see the evidence that I'm giving, the justification I'm giving to show that this is an authentic or a very high quality journal in my area. Then the conferences, I'm giving the H5 index, listed in top 20 sources in Google Metrics subcategories. So, like that. So, if you do not have conferences, please give 6 journals. Then those are the sources or the journals or conferences, but they are not papers. Then I'm asking you, list 3 influential papers, conference papers or journal papers in your area with justification. In answering this, provide the following table. So I need to see this table, and this table. That's all I need to see. And state the area of research and put your index number. Don't write unnecessary things. For example, paper 1, that's also called famous transformer paper by Vaswani. Number of citations, 160,000. Published in NeurIPS, it's H5. So this is good enough, right? You don't have to say that the researchers are reputed and so on, because this is sufficient evidence. Number of citations published in this conference, impact factor this much. And then citations 220,000. This is the so-called ResNet paper, and introduces ResNet architecture. You can write it something like that, or you can list the conference is a CVPR, the topmost conference of all conferences, and so on. That's the assignment that you have to do. So please do it and be done with it, so that I know that you are aware of the areas of the journals and conferences important in your area. Okay, so let's slowly move to analyzing literature, and then next time I'll be able to help you to write a brief literature review. Okay. So now let's read this. So reading, power and authority. How do we keep the focus on the phenomenon? Not how do we, not having. How do we keep the focus on the phenomenon rather than on the name of the person? Okay, let's read this. It's a common problem. Huh? A principal failing of novice researchers at every stage of a project, which is especially evident in review of literature, is that they give away their power and authority. As a researcher, you need to accept that you are in charge of this study, and that in the case of dissertation, you will likely be the world's leading expert on the narrow topic you address. One way of giving away authority is to defer the authority of others in the review, assuming, for instance, that because Emily, whoever, and John, whoever, did something, said something, it is necessarily valid. You need to adapt a critical perspective in reading and relating work of others. The main reason why sentences beginning with John's found are best kept to a minimum is that they shift the focus of the review from your own argument to the work of others. A preferable strategy is to develop a theme and then cite the work of relevant authors to buttress the argument you are making, to provide noteworthy examples of your point or counterexamples that need to be considered. Consider the following fictional example. Now, please read this on your own. The example, this one. Let me read. Illuminators 2020 conducted a study on the effects of seasonal lighting on major depression by comparing the rates of depressive illness among the residents of Seattle and San Diego during different times of the year. He hypothesized that there would be more depression in the northern city than the southern city, and more depression during winter during summer. His findings confirmed his hypothesis. So you can see this one totally gives the power to the person who wrote that journal paper, Illuminators. And as a person who's writing the literature review, you are projecting no authority here. So adapt a critical perspective in reading and relating work of others. In contrast to this, the strategy is to develop a theme and then cite the work of relevant authors to support your argument, provide noteworthy examples or counterexamples. So now, rather than going by authors, author 1, author 2, author 3, author 4, like in this way, you have to go with aspect 1, aspect 2, aspect 3, aspect 4. As I showed you the VGGT paper, you may realize that he has addressed 3 areas of research in literature. So if you go by aspect, then your arguments are authoritative. So look at this one. This is the correct version. This one. Please read it by yourself. There is a reason to believe that differences in seasonal lighting can affect the extent of depressive illness. For instance, residents of Seattle, a northern city, are reported to have higher rates of depression than residents of San Diego, a southern city. And these differences are accentuated during the winter, suggesting that relative darkness may exacerbate mood disorders. Now here you can say you are the one who's describing and you're keeping the authority with you, and you are just using Illuminators 2010 to reinforce the points that you are saying. So this is the way to write a literature review. And in the next assignment, I will check whether you have taken this it's a rule actually. This rule of writing a literature review like this. So so we should not use quotations excessively, include that contradicts also, and so on. Yeah. So now 10 minutes is left. So we will look at critiquing a research article briefly next time, and we will look at how to write, and we will briefly understand about the IEEE format, MLA format, and so on. And we will collaboratively discuss about the tools that can be used for literature review. Yes. So you have to do a small quiz. 20 questions are there, but they are very easy questions. If you go through the slides, please do them. You have about 1 hour to do that, I think. Please click and do these quizzes also. This is there to encourage participation, not to examine you something. Yeah. Okay. So I will conclude the discussion now, and allow you time for the quiz, and if you have any questions to ask. Seven attempts are there. Generally, all of you have gotten high marks. You can attempt it twice. Yeah. Please complete this quiz. If you have any questions, please ask. Otherwise, you can do the quiz, and if you are done with it, you can log off. Thank you very much, everyone. So you have time. You have until 6:30 to do the quiz. Maybe I can take that more time. It is not reasonable enough. Okay. Yeah. Happy New Year, everyone. Yes. Forgot. Happy New Year. See you meeting after the New Year.
Wish you the same, sir.
Wish you the Happy New Year.